From talking to peers, friends, and even my own siblings, I would like to congratulate all of us for making it out of those teen years. I am sure it wasn't easy. And for those who still feel like they're coming out of that stage, no, it gets better. By saying all of this, I know I'm making it sound like we all just had a terrible time growing up. But the reality of it is a bit more complex. Depending on who you are and your family dynamic, you might have had quite different experiences. My name is Ana Lucia Samayoa Ramos, a current senior at Colorado State University, studying human development and family studies. And I believe that, like me, many college students have had a variety of experiences during their adolescence that has definitely shaped who they are today. For me, it was having a strict mother that monitored everything I did. While talking to other students who have experienced similar parenting styles, the question whether this behavior is appropriate to help adolescents through development rises. I am arguing that teens should not be strictly monitored by their parents, and we will see a little bit as to why in the following slides. Some key arguments. Well, thinking about the ways that strictly monitoring teens can impact them, I came up with some key arguments that can help us understand more about what those impacts are and the role that parents have within them. Moving straight onto these key points, we have the following impacts. Strictly monitoring teens could damage relationships between adolescents and their parents, increase adolescents' likelihood to engage in risk behaviors, lack of parent relationships as adults. We will also be talking about these three key points more in depth in the following slides, as well as the research that goes behind each of them. Thinking about the way that my own relationship with my parent has evolved through time, looking back at my teenage years, I can see how having a relationship with them might have been difficult at times. Unfortunately, this is not uncommon. Many teenagers experience difficulty with having a good relationship, or even a relationship at all with their parents, even more when they are being strictly monitored. When thinking about the way that these relationships unfold, parenting styles must be taken into consideration. For example, according to a study focusing on parenting relationships, it found that authoritarian parents tend to show more verbal hostility and psychological control over their children, which can lead to less communication and less honesty from their children to parents. Now, moving on to risk behaviors. As I mentioned before, strictly monitoring teens can result in them engaging in more risk behaviors. Now, looking at this from really a human perspective, it makes sense that some adolescents might engage in this type of behaviors in order to feel more understood, whether it's by a certain group of individuals or to feel more accepted. Where Rachel, I apologize, what research has shown is that the way parents communicate their concerns about risk behaviors, such as alcohol consumption in this case, can really impact the way that they behave. A study focusing on how parents handle the topic of alcohol showed that those with more strict rules didn't really talk about the impact that alcohol could have at such an early age, which then led to an increased onset behavior, meaning that more teens were engaging in alcohol consumption. Another study also showed how strict parenting, more specifically authoritarian parenting, can lead to adolescents engaging in self-harm. I think this can also even be more damaging when parents are not understanding as to why teens might be engaging in this type of behaviors. As we think about the lifespan of an individual, or even thinking about who you are, I believe we can all think about how our childhood and even teenage years can have an impact on the adults we become or the adults that we are today. My last key point really focuses on the impact that strictly monitoring teens has on them in the long run. A study focusing on helicopter parenting found that those adults that grew up with this kind of parents that were strict, once they became adults and left the home, chose to have less communication with their parents. And teens that experienced those teens that experienced less levels of helicopter parenting. Another study found that similar to those with helicopter parents, teens that experienced authoritarian parents, once they became adults, decided to have little to no relationship with their parents, and also reported to even having hostile relationships, since some parents still wanted to strictly monitor their now adult children. And while I believe that after research and personal experience, parents should not strictly monitor their teens, there are always cases in which this behavior works for some families. I believe that it all depends on the level of communication the families have and the setting of boundaries. But again, all of that depends on the family and many times the culture with those relationships. My experience growing up has impacted the way I move around the world today, and even some decisions I have made. I think advocating for more education for future parents is important. I know for my parents and many other, the lack of awareness or education of the impacts that this parenting behavior could cause played a big role in them thinking that it was the best that they could do. I really invite others to break those cycles that might still be running in our families, and do our best to create meaningful relationships between parents and adolescents. I really want to thank you for your time to hear me and what I had to say about why teens should not be strictly monitored by their parents.